In the days following his big loss in South Carolina, the predictions market in trade showed his chances of becoming the nominee drop. Well, it's kind of a good news, bad news day for Mitt Romney. Mr. Romney begins the week with 3 trends shaping up around him. One is actually quite promising for his campaign. The other 2 are just plain worrisome. So we will start with the good news. The promising trend for Mitt Romney is this.
Thanks, you guys. Wow. What a great showing. Thank you, Nevada.
After winning the Nevada caucus by nearly 30 points, Mitt Romney appears to be on a winning trend. Mr. Romney has now, for the first time, won 2 contests in a row. It has taken him 5 to get there, but he's now won 2 in a row. After a big convincing win in Florida, he had another big convincing win in Nevada over the weekend, and the odds of him being the nominee have jumped accordingly. In the days following his big loss in South Carolina, the predictions market in trade showed his chances of becoming the nominee dropping almost 20 points, from 92% to 70%. Today, fresh off his 2nd in a row victory in Nevada, in trade has Mitt Romney back up at almost 87%. But funny thing about that Nevada victory, while he did absolutely crush Newt Gingrich, not to mention Ron Paul and Rick Santorum, Mitt Romney lost to another candidate. In this year's Nevada caucuses, Mitt Romney lost to Mitt Romney, circa 2008. In 2008, the last time Mitt Romney ran for president, he got more than 22,000 votes in Nevada, just over 51%. This year, he got about 16,000 votes in Nevada, 50%. And that is part of a broader worrying trend for both Mitt Romney specifically and the Republicans generally. Lower turnout among Republicans in their primaries and caucuses this time around. If you look just at self-identifying Republicans in the exit polls, here's what's been happening to turnout in Republican contests. Here's Iowa with 2008 Republican turnout on the left and this year on the right, an 11% drop-off. In New Hampshire, here's 2008 compared to this year. The numbers dropped 15%. The only real bright spot in terms of turnout for the Republicans is South Carolina, where turnout did go up by 20%. But in Florida, a return to the downward trend. Turnout among self-identified Republicans was down 16% this year compared with 2008. Of course, the vaunted enthusiasm gap was invoked again and again in 2010 as the key to Republican victory. So it looks to be a drop in Republican turnout from 2008 is worrying trend number 1. The second worrying trend for Mitt Romney is the polling on his favorability and likability. In one of those brutal and hurtful polling questions I have ever seen, voters were asked, as they get to know Mitt Romney, whether they liked him more or less. By more than 2 to 1, people said the more they got to know Mitt Romney, the less they like him. 52% of Americans say they're liking Mitt Romney less as the nomination battle plays out. Even if you only ask Republicans or people who say they lean Republican, more people say they like Mitt Romney less the more they get to know him than the other way around. Of course, the more common measure of likability is favorability, and the trend for Mitt Romney on that count is very grim. Indeed, here's Talking Points memo poll tracker on Romney's unfavorability, which is currently skyrocketing as you see. The latest number from public policy polling has Mitt Romney's unfavorability at 47%. So, good news for Mitt Romney, he's winning. Bad news for Mitt Romney, he's also losing to himself from 4 years ago. People like him less and less. Newt Gingrich has threatened to stick around and say mean things about him until the nominating convention in August, and August is 6 months away. Joining us now, Celinda Lake, Democratic pollster and strategist. Celinda, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I guess the first question is about how well we can use previous turnout in an open primary to extrapolate forward and predict what turnout is looking like in the general. Is that a dodgy metric for us to be using, or does that actually have some validity?
Well, it has some validity, and particularly when you look at the patterns underneath. First of all, the fact that you have it in state after state after state, and in fact, Romney does better the lower the turnout. And then if you look at who's not showing up to vote, the people who aren't showing up to vote are born-again Christian voters who have a real problem with Mitt Romney. They don't think he's a good conservative. They worry about his religion. That bodes real trouble for the election in the fall, and a real opportunity for Democrats who, in the inverse, are getting more enthusiastic about their nominee.
I thought it was very interesting that, to the point you just made, that South Carolina was the one place where turnout increased markedly, and it was a place where Romney got whooped, and where there was the most sort of traditional Tea Party grassroots activism apparently behind the outcome.
Right, and in fact, Mitt Romney's only getting, even in the states he's winning, a quarter of the Tea Party vote and a quarter of the born-again Christian vote. He's running behind or tied with Santorum and behind Newt Gingrich. There are core elements of the Republican base that are very, very disgruntled with this ticket. And then when you get to general election voters, you have someone who's winning, and these aren't just Newt Gingrich-inflicted problems. These are Mitt Romney-inflicted problems. Those negatives are going up because of what Mitt Romney is saying about Mitt Romney.
Yeah, I've been actually surprised, frankly, how much his unfavorability ratings have skyrocketed and how negative public opinion turning towards him personally is. And one of the most robust polling results of President Obama's tenure is how strong his personal favorability remains despite whatever economic situations are having. How important is that metric? Favorability, how you feel about the person who's standing in front of you there in a suit at a microphone running for president when you get to Election Day?
It matters a lot. And not only is Mitt Romney failing on the personal likability, but he's failing on the guy you want to sit down who would understand your life. It's what we call in the Democratic Party the have a beer with the guy test. Mitt Romney, by his own words and deeds, just seems completely out of touch with what's going on for average people. When you make bets for $10,000, when you think income that is the value of people's houses, when you have offshore accounts, and it's on and on and on, you pay a lower percentage for your taxes than the average secretary in the United States. I mean, honestly, this man is the perfect candidate as a poster child for the 99% to 1% message. And he's inflicting all of these wounds on himself. And then you go and get Donald Trump's endorsement at a casino in Nevada. Most independent voters usually don't even pay attention to these races, but Mitt Romney's drawing attention to himself, and it's all negative.
I thought it was interesting in some of the more recent polling that's happened. Self-described moderates have moved back towards President Obama.
That's right.
And part of that, I think, is probably the result of the recent good economic news, which you have to sort of disaggregate from favorability. But do you think? How much do you think that the president is someone who is now so known to the American people that whatever people think about him, the idea of attacking him as somehow other, which seems part of what the Republican message has been, no longer resonates?
It doesn't resonate, and the character attacks don't resonate. And frankly, Mitt Romney is starting to have, it's the guy who's kind of strange, and the guy who keeps, what's amazing for me is it's a very polished candidate who keeps shooting himself in the foot.
With a polished bullet. So Linda Lake, Democratic pollster and strategist, thanks so much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
There's one completely hilarious Super Bowl ad you almost certainly didn't see last night. Now that I've seen it, it is my solemn duty to share it with you for the lulz. The best new thing in the world, straight ahead.